Now, when John Davidson was growing up in Galashiels in the 1980s, there was little understanding of Tourette's, the condition he was diagnosed with as a young child.
So John has spent much of his life helping everyone from teachers to the police understand what it is really like. And now his story has been turned into a film. Our entertainment correspondent Colin Patterson has been to meet him.
In 1989, the BBC broadcast a documentary called John's Not Mad, about a boy in Galashiels who had Tourette syndrome. At the time, it caused a sensation.
When I feel I'm going to say it, I try and stop myself, but it just feels as if I have to say it. It's like somebody's forcing it out of me.
Now, 35 years later, John Davidson's life story has been turned into a film called I Swear.
A tale that she...
Get lost! Look at him!
Hey, hey! Can't help it! Hey!
What is the matter with you, boy?
It's called Tourette syndrome. Say things that I shouldn't.
He's still coming to terms with seeing himself portrayed on the big screen.
It was a wow moment, absolutely fantastic. I think it's going to change a lot of people's lives. It's going to help so many people. That was the whole kind of point of doing the film. It wasn't just about me and my life, it was about everyone else with Tourette's. This is how we have to live our lives, and it's been so important to try and get that across.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
Tourette's affects around 1 in 100 school children who will display tics of some degree. For 10% of them, this will involve shouting, and as in John's case, a lot of bad language.
We know we're not to swear, we're brought up not to swear and, you know, or be heard swearing in public, and I think that reinforces the compulsion to do it. You know, I get this feeling, I need to shout something, I need to get it out, there's something inside.
What are you doing that for?
Stop me giving you a smack in the face.
Andrea Bissett, who is in the film, has Tourette's in real life, but isn't letting this stop her launching a career as an actress and wants to play all sorts of roles.
You right, pal?
This is a huge project and one that I would have loved to have viewed, let alone star in. But yeah, I wouldn't want this to be the kind of category of, you know, if you have Tourette's, you can only be in this category of acting with Tourette's. I'd like to show that there is, you know, opportunities that people with Tourette's can do, you know, and it's not just stuck to that is your personality and that is what your life will revolve around.
What's your dream role then?
Spider-Man got casted as a female, probably.
I Swear is also touring the country with special relaxed screenings where it's not a problem to make noise. After one of these, we met 15-year-old Nate, who's had Tourette's since the age of 6, and gave us his review.
A really good film, moving, really important. I think the fact that people understand and know what Tourette's is would be a big eye-opener for people. Just the film in itself will teach a lot of lessons.
Who would pretend to have such a condition?
Hey, me!
And as for John himself, the film has been a game changer. Because of Tourette's, the last time he'd been to the cinema was more than 40 years ago to see E.T.
To come in and watch my own film with other people from the Tourette's community in the cinema at the same time, and they're ticking and nobody seems to be worried about it.
How much does that mean to you?
It means masses, absolute masses. It's almost my life's work was to get to this point where we could go to cinemas. We would love to go to watch snooker live, but I think that was a wee bit. That would be a wee bit step too much. Very dangerous, yes.
If anyone can make that happen, it will be John.
I've got 2 aces!
We'll just pretend we didn't hear that.
Colin Patterson, BBC News.
What a guy, John Davidson. Well, we're joined now on the sofa by the film's director, Kirk Jones, and by Emma McNally, who's the Chief Executive of Tourette's Action. Good morning to both of you. Thank you for coming in. Kirk, I mean, you must have developed a real bond with John, getting to know him better and understand his story to be able to put it on screen.
Yeah, I first became aware of the story back in 1989, and I followed his life and documentaries as he's grown. And I was always really fascinated by John and by his journey. It was hilarious at times, but it was tragic at times. And as a writer and director, I'm always drawn to kind of putting humour and emotion together. And I first met John probably only about 2.5 years ago. I went up to Galashiels. We'd met previously on Facebook. I managed to find him, knocked on his door. He ticked something which was very inappropriate to me when I first opened the door. And my instinct was to make a joke of what he'd just said. And that was where I learnt my very first lesson in communicating with people who have Tourette's, which was ignore the tics completely, because a lot of people feel drawn into what's said to them, and they comment or they respond, and actually the comments aren't coming from the person. So that was the first time I learnt the lesson. Don't talk to the tics.
Emma, that is such an important piece of advice, isn't it? Because for people who are living with Tourette's at the moment, very often other people don't know how to react to them.
Yeah. They don't, and I think it's often portrayed as a humorous condition, so people will laugh at you, take the mick out of you, and people they don't really know how to react because they don't know enough about it, and it is very misunderstood by the general public.
So what difference do you think Kirk's film could make? How will this help?
It's going to be huge, absolutely huge. We went to the premiere the other night, and it's the most authentic film. It portrays everything just in the short film. It shows the stigma, the isolation, the pain, but most importantly, it shows how important acceptance and education is, something that we're trying to always push, but obviously a film like this is going to push it so much more than we ever could at the charity.
How does a Tourette's diagnosis make life more difficult for people? What are the challenges people might face?
There's going to be challenges within school very often because the teachers don't understand, challenges within the workplace, when you're out in public, getting on transport, all aspects of life really, but a diagnosis though is important, and that's what people really struggle to get because
Why is that important?
Because then you know what you're dealing with, because before that a lot of people, they're like, I don't know what's going on with me, and we get people coming to us now, older adults, saying, oh, I've heard about this now and I've saw the awareness that you're doing, and I've lived with this my whole life and I never knew what I had, because obviously years ago people just did, like you'll see in John's film, people didn't know what was going on with people.
Kirk, it's a responsibility, isn't it? Hell of a responsibility to make a movie like this about somebody's life in particular and then try to explain a complicated situation to a wider audience. I mean, tough?
It was tough, probably the toughest thing I've ever done. I know for Robert Arameo, who played John in the film, it was the toughest role that he'd ever taken on. When I first met John, I was very aware that John and the Tourette's community had not been treated as well as they should have been in the past. There were articles in the press which always seemed to focus on making fun of Tourette's. The most important lesson I learned very early on was that only 10% of people who have Tourette's swear. And I think the stereotype is that everyone swears who has Tourette's, and that is absolutely not true. The other thing is that it's incredibly exhausting to live with Tourette's. So I felt a responsibility to John and to the community to tell a story which educated people whilst at the same time seriously entertaining them as well. And I made John an executive producer very early on because he said, well, what does that mean? And I said, well, if you are unhappy with something, if I show you the final cut of the film and there's something you don't think we've got right, I will do my best to correct it. So I wanted to make sure that he was empowered with a voice in the filmmaking process.
And Emma, what would make life less exhausting for people who are living with Tourette's now?
Acceptance from the general public, but I think it's the tics that make it exhausting, but also when they're out in public they'll be trying to not tic, and that in itself can be exhausting, trying to hold it all in.
So if there's one thing that you'd like us all to know, what is it? Just to not reference, ignore?
Yeah, not ignore the person, but ignore the tics. But that's a hard thing to do because a lot of people then will feel like they need to ignore the person. Yeah.
Emma, Kirk, thank you so much for coming in and talking about it. The film looks great. Look forward to watching it. It's called I Swear. It's out on Friday, the 10th of October.
Do stay with us. The headlines are coming right up.